Hey everybody, it is November 18th, and if you've been following the Jeffrey Epstein case and everything associated with it, all the accusers or co-conspirators that have been named in the public, one of them that I've been following is obviously Prince Andrew. He is known as the Duke of York. He is the second or second son of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip. And he recently did a video with or an interview with BBC, I think just BBC. It's BBC Newsnight. Okay, this came out 2 days ago. He did an interview confronting the connection with him and Epstein. He's been a longtime friend of Epstein, and by long time I mean at least 20 years. That's documented. He's not even denying that. He even in this interview, I made notes. I have notes that I'm going to go through. That's what I do with everything. Like I have notebooks everywhere, and I think that when I die, my husband, he'll at least have like all my notebooks, but then I realized that it's all chicken scratch. So he's not going to be able to read any of this shit. So Prince Andrews did an interview 2 days ago, and it was supposed to be, I think he was, he obviously was wised up by his lawyers. Clearly, he only does things if his lawyer tells him to. That's basically one thing he said in the interview was like, I would only speak in court if my lawyer told me to. So obviously he's acting on behalf of his lawyer, giving him advice, saying, hey, you need to get in front of this story because you need to look innocent. Because in my experience researching, elite pedophiles, the guilty ones, they always know to shut their mouths. They know to shut the fuck up, and not say anything. So I think Prince Andrew doing this BBC interview kind of shows that he's at least pretending to look innocent. But it's funny because watching this interview, if you saw it, look it up, BBC Nightline, Prince Andrew. Okay. There's so many things in this interview that he says that he tries to clear his name, but it's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous, and it ends up making it worse, making the situation worse, which is, to me, hilarious because, there's no accountability. They're not going to be held accountable within this current system. In the U.S., there's money and wealth. If you have money and wealth and power, you're not going to be held accountable. He's not afraid. What he's afraid of right now, he's doing this interview to kind of just give the media something to just, somehow make his reputation better. Okay. But the things that he says in the interview is just more so proving his deep connection with Epstein, and he can't deny it anymore, which is funny to me. So let's go through some things that he said. And don't take my word for it. Go watch the interview. It's like an hour long, but I'm going to give you the highlights if you don't want to watch the whole interview. He says that Prince Andrews met Epstein through Ghislaine Maxwell, which was Ghislaine Maxwell. She was the one that was procuring the women, the young ladies, the girls, the children for Epstein, for his co-conspirators. Okay, she was providing the victims, okay, on a silver platter to these men of power. And he was trying to, in this interview, the prince was basically saying that he only knew Epstein through her. So, and he was acting like that was somehow better. That, hey, I only know him through the female that procured these children for him. That was the only connection. Okay. Then he said that he only saw him no more than 3 or 4 times a year. Okay. I only saw this pedophile 3 to 4 times a year is what he said. Okay. He said, at the very end too, he said, we all knew him. He was referring to his family at the palace, that everybody knew him. He literally admitted the entire court knew him, knew Epstein on a personal level. We all knew him is what he said. And it's funny that he used those words, we all knew him, because the reason ABC News wouldn't report about Epstein, no, even though they had women, they had proof, they had photos, they had other women to back it up. And, ABC said, oh, that's not enough for a story. And they told Amy Robach that, who's that Jeffrey Epstein? We don't know who that is. If the fucking palace knows, bet your ass ABC knows. Okay? Anyway, so ABC is a whole other story. ABC is owned by Disney, and there's so many associations with pedophilia in Hollywood and with Disney, and that's a whole other video. He said it was a stretch to consider him a very, very, very close friend. And it's funny, his wording, it's almost as if he's preparing his case for if he is brought to court to use these stretches, of the truth. If you stay at somebody's house, their houses, he had several houses all over the world, on the island, New York, I believe Florida. So, and he stayed at several of the guys' houses. If you stay at somebody's house in different locations, you fucking know them. You know them on a very well level, okay? He referred to Jeffrey Epstein's house as a railroad station. Yeah. No. This is not a train station, okay? Epstein's house was not a train station. It was, I guess if you want to consider it because they were trafficking young children, a train station that trafficked children, I guess. And Virginia Roberts, which is one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims, and she claims to be one of Prince Andrew's victims as well on 3 different occasions. And she said that there's no way that you could be in and around Jeffrey Epstein for that long, that frequently, and not know what he was doing. Okay. He said that Jeffrey Epstein had a talent for bringing extraordinary people together. Extraordinary, you mean pedophiles? You mean elites who don't care and who choose to dine with pedophiles? Yeah, extraordinary, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. He said that he brought academics, politicians, people from United Nations, all together. Pedophilia is a universal term. This is hard for me because sometimes it's hard to say these words and talk about these things, and then sometimes it almost makes me laugh because it's so ridiculous. So I'm making this video. I'm not even going to go over dates of when it happened and all that, because that's just, that's for the courts, even though the courts it's not going to be handled in court. There really is no way to stop these people other than just shedding light to it. And it's definitely a slow process that you have to get the puzzle pieces all together. So I'm just kind of go over what things he said and give you my thoughts on it, because that's all we can do at this point, okay? Whether or not Jeffrey Epstein is alive or dead is moot, okay? I'm not going to argue. I mean, it'd be like arguing with a wall with people that think he's alive. Even if you're not going to base your analysis on factual information, then I can't do anything for you. He said, going to Jeffrey Epstein's was never about partying. It was always about learning what he could out of Wall Street and U.S. political info. So he was not only allegedly engaging this girl, this underage girl, on 3 encounters, but he could have had others too. You know, I wouldn't put it past these people to have multiple women, okay, multiple children. And another thing too I want to point out is terminology. I'm seeing a few mainstream media articles and even the prosecutors using the term child prostitute. Adult women are prostitutes. They can be prostitutes if they choose to be prostitutes. They can be put in situations where they're not safe or they're coerced or whatever. But children, and when children are having sex with older men, it's not by their choosing. They don't choose to be a sex worker. That's child slavery. Okay, that's child abuse, child slavery, pedophilia, child trafficking. That's what that is. It's not child prostitution does not exist like adult prostitution. Okay, they don't give consent. Okay, he said 2008, Jeffrey was a guest at Windsor Castle, was not at his family's invitation. He claims that it was Ghislaine Maxwell that was invited, and he refers to Epstein as a +1. So because they were going together, you see how he made something, instead of both of them being invited, he was saying, oh, well, she was invited and he tagged along. It doesn't work that way. If you're invited to the castle, you are approved by the castle to let you in. They let a pedophile come into their home because they're cool with pedophiles, and the absolutely only reason why they're acting like they had to push him out after he was convicted was because the news was reporting about it. Prince Andrew admitted himself that even after he was convicted, that Prince Andrew was still in contact with Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein too at the time, like later on. And he admitted that they didn't have any reason to talk about Jeffrey because he wasn't in the news. That was the only reason that they care about this. That's the only reason why he's fucking on BBC doing this interview, is to look like he's an innocent man and to look like he's trying to just do the right thing, you know, clear it up. He gets worse. I have like so many more things to tell. Okay. There was another, this was after he'd been, this is his admission, although he looked a bit iffy with some of these facts. He admitted to staying to multiple of Jeffrey Epstein's house. He admitted to going to the island. And funny enough, okay, so there was one claim where Virginia Roberts, she said in a court document that they were at some nightclub and the prince came up and was dancing with her, and he's like, I don't dance, and as if that's like some type of alibi. And then it gets worse. It gets to the part where I don't know whether to laugh or to cry at this. He says, oh no, she says in her deposition, she says that he was sweating profusely as they were dancing, and he laughed, and he says, well, at the time, this proves that she's lying, is what he says, and not telling the truth, because he says at the time he didn't sweat, that he had some condition that rendered him unable to sweat, But now he sweats. He can sweat now. Thank goodness. He can sweat now, but he couldn't sweat then. And so obviously she must be lying, is what he says. Sweat is not an alibi. Okay. He says his alibi, I believe it was that night, he says his alibi was that his wife was gone. So that means that he was at home with the kids. And he remembers explicitly that he went to Pizza Express that night and got pizza. His alibi is not just, oh, I can't sweat, but it's, oh, I got pizza that night. So that I don't know whether they're playing jokes or playing into the conspiracy of Pizzagate and the terminology of Pizzagate, because I know that a lot of people, they see that and they immediately think, oh, that's conspiracy theory or whatever, because there's a lot of misinformation that goes around that. These stories that are real, there's a lot of false information to confuse us. So that's why we have to be very critical thinkers in this day and age and go through things. Like, I'm even still, like, up to last night, I was even pulling up my phone. I don't have it with me. And going back over that picture, and I thought I saw a little blemish or something that looked strange, but I realized that it was just the way she was moving. I analyzed everything, okay? If I'm saying it to you, it's because I've severely thought this through, okay? I try and think of, like, all different angles, because I know that, they're trying to confuse and manipulate us at every turn. So we have to be superior critical thinkers right now. Where am I? Who knows? Like, literally, it's chicken scratch. Like, I am a horrible writer. Okay, so he said he attended a party. He was at a party after Epstein was released in December 2010. He denies it twice, because the interviewer was like, you attended, you went to this, there's proof of it. And he denied it twice, and then he admits that he was there, because he acted like he got his days wrong. And then, so he was there after not only he was convicted, but he was released, and he was at a party and they were celebrating. And when the interviewer said, why did you stay at this pedophile's house after he was, like, convicted and released? Why? She goes, he said it was a convenient place to stay. This is not a backpacker that's homeless and has trouble finding a place. This is not like he could live anywhere. He could be, I mean, I'm sure there's thousands of people that would have given him a place to stay if he couldn't come up with the cash, I guess. It gets so much worse. So he goes on, and he was trying to explain why he was staying there even after he was convicted, even after he did a certain time for whatever previous crime he was in there for. It was sexual acts with a minor. He says that he thought it was the honorable thing to do to stay with Epstein for 4 days. He admitted 4 days that he stayed at this guy's home after he was convicted, after he was released from prison. Everybody knew that he was a pedophile, career, like, lifelong pedophile. He says that he was trying to be honorable. He said that he was probably too honorable. He literally said he stayed in a fucking pedophile's house for 4 days in his town to say, goodbye, can't be friends with you anymore. It took 4 days for him to stay at the guy's house and tell him that. They did this walk in the park, and there was a photo, and who the fuck knows who took the photo? I don't fucking know. I don't know if Epstein may have tried to use it as some type of more blackmail. I don't know. Like maybe he just wanted to use whatever cards he had. He was a pedophile that was caught. He was probably being shunned, by the other elites. They want to, all of his co-conspirators, they're scared. That's why I'm pretty positive he's dead. He is a liability. He was a liability. These people, it makes no sense to me why they would argue that they would try and keep this man alive. He was in jail. He was already caught. Pedophiles are not redeemed in public. And you know what? I take that back. There are some pedophiles, they'll still get hired in Hollywood. I do get that. But I think things are changing, and I think people are starting to have a real problem with pedophilia. And as ashamed as I am that there are people that don't have a problem with it, I don't necessarily think it's because they approve of it. I know that there's obviously pedophiles out there that do approve of it, but I'm saying I think the masses, I think they don't understand that it's a real problem. And so that's why I do videos like this, to show you that it is a real problem. And we do need to be talking about it, because nobody has all the facts. We don't have all the facts. We're never going to have all the facts. We have to take the puzzle pieces little by little and try and put a picture together that makes sense. Okay. And what makes sense to me is that what this girl, Virginia Roberts, she's got pictures. She's got witnesses. She had everything she needed, more than anybody could probably imagine that she could probably come up with, because it's, like, I think about the people that get cancer from companies that have glyphosate in their products. We eat it, we ingest it. It's in our floors, it's in our food, it's on our grass. Okay. There's so many different companies that cause us physical illnesses, and it's so hard to prove it, let alone if you were to come out and say I was a child sex slave to elites, you would probably not be given a real investigation. Okay, that's not how this country works. We are not the land of the free in any means. Okay, it's the land of the delusional. This is the land of the elites. This is not our country. I'm getting off task here. Let me get back on it here. So he refers to Jeffrey Epstein's house, one of his houses, I think in New York, as a railway station. And that makes a lot of sense, because when you're trafficking humans, obviously there'd be people, elites coming in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. And these girls, I can only imagine to be a fly on the wall in that house, and all of his houses in the island. These women probably went through back ways. They probably went through kitchens. They probably, people like Prince Andrews, they don't look at the working class people. They go along their day and they ignore these people like maids. They come in, they come out, they do it when the person's not there. That's how it works. So I kind of understand how he can try and push the angle that he didn't see these child prostitutes coming in and out, because he probably didn't question it, especially if he was involved. He doesn't have, if he doesn't have to look at it, all that matters is his own massage. And I think that's a very common denominator that I'm seeing, is massages. That's how they refer to this, especially when they get started. The children, they start rubbing feet and doing massages, and that's how they get them into going more and more and more. And of course, I think they do pay some of them, but at the same time, that's how they trap these young women because they feel like they convince these children that they actually are prostitutes, that they're doing something wrong themselves, that they are partially to blame for this because they're taking money for it. They don't give consent. It doesn't matter if you give them money. They have not consented. That's not consensual. And if you transport children and you are not their guardian, you are a child trafficker. So it boggles my mind how people can justify their actions and say, oh, well, we don't know that, one way or the other. Fucking think, okay? Because we have a government that is not taking care of ending pedophilia, okay? Not at all. Okay. There was a witness in Virginia Roberts' testimony saying that I think it was I want to say it was not the maid. I want to say maybe butler or somebody in the house saw Prince Andrews getting a foot rub from Virginia Roberts. So she has a witness. This is just like Amy Robach said on ABC News. She said, we had witnesses, we had photos, we had other women to corroborate it, we had the victim. Okay, bam. That's what else do you need? They had a story 3 years ago, ABC News, which is Walt Disney Company. Walt Disney Company had this information 3 years ago, and they said that it wasn't enough evidence to report about it. Fuck you, ABC. Shame on you. Shame on you. How many more children have been harmed by you not reporting about this? 3 years. 3 years that you did nothing. Reporting about Trump and other bullshit and manipulating people, and it makes me sick. People too cowardly to fucking report about this. If I was you, Amy Robach, I would have fucking took this story, took what information I could get, and I would have gone on air myself. I would have bought a fucking Logitech camera. It's like $14, like I got now, and I would have reported it myself. You're a coward, and you prefer money and position and fame and popularity over doing what's right. How many more children were hurt because of your fucking selfishness? He said in the interview, he was asked if he regrets knowing him. He said no. He benefited from his contacts, from Epstein's contacts. He had a lot of elite, a lot of politicians, academics, people in government that were friends with him. That's how Epstein got his powers, his connections. And his connections were earned by trafficking abused children. He said he could have easily stayed somewhere else, but the convenience of getting a hold of Epstein by living at his house was the benefit. He claims that Epstein's schedule, it was hard to get a hold of him unless he stayed at his one of his houses, and then that's how you could catch him at his railroad station, trafficking children in and out, in and out. This is not a conspiracy. This fucking happened in his homes, all of his homes. This happened in all of his homes, all the time. He wasn't a pedophile 3 days out of the week. He was a pedophile every single day of the week. He had women and he had children at his disposal every single day of the week because of Ghislaine Maxwell, the person that you think, oh, we're friends with her because Epstein's dead, ha ha ha, and you laughed about it. And I also too want to mention that on the hot mic, Amy Robach said that the palace threatened them 10 million different ways, that they couldn't report about it. They did that because of you. And because of Hillary Clinton too. This was during the election. They didn't want to fuck up her connections. Because Bill Clinton was connected with Epstein as well. He claims he is convinced that he was never at the bar with Virginia Roberts. He's convinced. He racked his brain. He said he racked his brain. And he has no memory of it. He didn't say that he knows for a fact he wasn't there and he has an alibi. He racked his brain. He really racked his brain, everybody. He really thought hard. Was I there with a child slave? No, I was at Pizza Express. No, what you were at is Lolita Express. And he said at the time he was on terminal leave with the Navy and that he couldn't have been there and raped the girl 3 times. He couldn't have done that because he couldn't sweat. And she says he sweat on him. And he couldn't sweat at the time. He can sweat now, but he couldn't sweat then. That's an alibi, everybody. So if you go rob a bank, say, sorry, I wasn't sweating at the time. Didn't do it. But I sweat now. Yeah. He's sweating now. He may not have been sweating then, but he's sweating now. I'll tell you that. If he's doing this interview, he's getting ready for any potential, if he becomes a liability, he's going to have the same fate of Jeffrey Epstein. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's his own son. Now, you know what? He might actually be one of the few that get flown off to an island, being that close to high up royalty. He may be one of those people sipping Mai Tais on an island. But that sure as fuck is not Epstein. Now there's a photograph of him in Ghislaine Maxwell's house upstairs with his arm around her. And at first I believed the photo, and then I took a closer look, and then I wasn't sure. But then I realized that my second assumption was actually wrong. So I'm back to thinking that it's a legit photo now. Although Prince Andrew was correct in his assessment, legal assessment. Clearly he got this from his lawyers, that it's going to be hard to prove whether it's a real photo or a photoshopped because of the fact that it's a photo of a photo of a photo. And that goes along with, pointing out how hard it is to actually prove this. Because it's not like these predators are going to give these women and children a lot of leeway to be able to prove their wrongdoing. Okay, this is not their first rodeo. These people are career pedophiles. They're lifelong pedophiles. They didn't just wake up one day and learn how to be a pedophile. Okay. One thing that I want to point out is in the entire interview, he never denied that it happened. He denies memory of it. That to me is like court speak, court speak, kind of like how the DNC speaks. They speak in court terms, court logic, court arguments, One thing I thought was strange, he said that the photo was of him with Virginia Roberts and Ghislaine Maxwell's arm was in the background. It was at a birthday party, I believe. And he said that was Ghislaine Maxwell's house, and it was referred saying it was taken by Epstein. I think that was bought from Virginia Roberts, said that it was taken by Epstein, like on a little, disposable camera. He's for the prince said he's never seen Epstein with a camera. So therefore, it must be a fake video, fake photo, because he's never seen Epstein hold a camera. Have you guys seen me hold a camera? I've held a camera probably every day of my life. Have you guys seen me hold a camera? Have you seen me hold it? It must not be. It must be true. I must have never held a camera before if you said so. And he says back to the photo, he says he never remembers going upstairs, and then he says that the photo is of Ghislaine Maxwell's upstairs. Well, if you've never been up there, then how'd you know it was her upstairs? How'd you know that? I mean, it's just, and then he said, this is back to her, Virginia Roberts' accusation that they were at a club together, and he said, no, this is about the birthday party, and he says, I would never hug someone like that without a suit on because I'm a royal. He says, I don't do public displays of affection because he's a royal. So that must be true. That's his alibi. I'm a royal, so I don't give public displays of affection because I'm royal. Okay. So Virginia Roberts, she claims in a legal doc that they had sex 3 times, and then he laughed. He laughed and he said that it couldn't be true because at the time of one of those incidents, they had already flown back to the island. So he like knew their schedule. He's claiming he knows their schedule so well that he couldn't have raped the girl because she was already gone to the sex island at the time. What the fuck, man? You're not helping yourself at all. And then there was a witness in Virginia Roberts' court case that also said that the last month that they saw him at one of Epstein's houses, there was a witness seeing him there, like after he was let out, and he goes, "Oh, I probably was, because he claims he was staying right down the street, so he was probably popped by the pedophile's house, popped in out of convenience." She claims that they had sex in London at Ghislaine Maxwell's house, in New York at Epstein's house, and then at the island with many other girls. The interviewer asked the Prince Andrews if he thinks she's lying. He says that he can't answer that he only has no memory of it happening. This reminds me, I've done some research on pedophile priests, and most of them, if not all of them, die of old age, and they get to a point where they get so old that if accusations and proof and physical evidence of the abuse actually turns out to be legitimate, they have no memory of it because they're so fucking old that they could just say, "Oh, I have no memory." Like Hillary, I don't know what this means. I don't know what classified means. I'm old, He said he racked his brain. for a decade, racked his brain, and he had no idea that Epstein was a pedophile. He never saw it. He said people must have treated him indifferent as a royal. They must have hid it all. He said that when men have sex, it's a positive action, so he definitely would have remembered having sex with her. Then he briefly talks about Epstein dying in August 2019. He laughs. Then he said that there was some some other reports about the bone in his neck, the way that it was broken, may not be comparable to the death of a suicide, and I think he didn't want to touch on that too much because he was, thinking of the future and court related stuff. He said his last contact with Ghislaine Maxwell, who was his madam, she would procure the girls for him, was this year. I'm telling you, they don't care. Pedophile, not pedophile, they don't care. Because they're part of it. They don't care. And then one of the worst things he said was that he thinks that the reason that there's the interviewer pushed a narrative that, isn't it great that people are finally, coming forward and listening to these women, and he responded saying that he thinks the increase of these women speaking out is because of social media, and in a way he makes it sound like he blames social media for giving those women a voice. And I think that was one of the most disgusting parts of the interview, was not just him trying to cover up himself, and smooth over things for his family. He's definitely doing this on behalf of his family and his lawyer. But I don't think that his family expected him to say, we all knew him. We all knew him. The whole family, the whole royal family knew Jeffrey Epstein. And Amy Robach admitted on a hot mic that the palace had threatened them 10 million ways to not air their story about Prince Andrew being connected to a pedophile. And then Prince Andrew went on the fucking BBC interview and gave us more information than we've ever had about his involvement with the pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. He admitted on camera their connection. Okay? So I consider watching the interview, and just, there's not much we can do right now about these pedophiles beyond documenting it, understanding how they work, and, hopefully in the end, it will educate enough people about it that it's not a taboo subject, because ultimately the children matter more than our comfort level. Okay? These children are being trafficked from Haiti, from all over the world. Okay? That's an added bonus for our government, why they torment these other countries, because countries in war make for great child trafficking, child slavery. Okay? Just think on that. I hope this enlightened you. I hope you understand what I'm talking about, and want to encourage you to look this up further. I have a longer term project that I'm working on where I'm documenting all of this. I'm doing these videos just kind of dividing it up, but I'm doing a catch-all, Hollywood, Pizzagate, Pedowood, whatever you want to call it. But there is an epidemic of pedophilia right now, And the people that are getting away with it are the people with the most amount of money and the most connections to high-ranking people. The idea of statistically, it would only make sense to me that there's more pedophiles in power than poor pedophiles. Because to be able to do the crimes that you want to do, you need money. And any smart pedophile would achieve that so they can go free. And once you get a few pedophiles in your little black book, you can do a lot. You can do a lot with that. So just think on that, guys. And I hope you have a great Monday, and try and expose corruption, even if it makes you uncomfortable or makes your friends uncomfortable or your family confused. Keep shining light on the darkness, okay? It's not going to go away unless we do. Talk to you guys later.